Being recorded.
Everyone can thrive. There we go. All right. Well, first off, we are really excited to be here at Mount St. Vincent. Thank you for setting this up. And in Councilwoman Amanda Sandoval's district, who has joined us this morning. So she's going to lead us off today with a welcome. So thank you very much.
I think I get to stand here, right? When I'm on Zoom
Yeah.
then.
Yep.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Councilwoman Amanda Sandoval, and I'm born and raised in this neighborhood. I live probably less than a mile away. And I just have to say, when I came up the stairs in the elevator to Mount St. Vincent, I almost started crying. So this spot is really near and dear to my heart, and I'll explain why. So my grandma, my dad's mom, my grandma Camilla, we owned La Casita. So it was on 44th and Tennyson. We made tamales, and my whole entire life, every Saturday morning when I lived with my dad, my parents were divorced. So every other weekend, I woke up and I had to go make tamales with my grandma. So my whole life, I spent Saturday making tamales with my grandma. And then Sunday morning, my grandma would always host breakfast for all of us. She would make green chili and potatoes and donuts, and we'd all go to my grandma's house. And one day my grandma got really sick, and she got a sore on her right foot, and she had her leg amputated, and she was a devout Catholic. And we would go to St. Catherine's, which is not far from here, church every Sunday. And we were told that my grandma was not allowed to stay in her wheelchair in the aisle. And so we had to lift my grandma up and into the pew. So if you went up to get communion, we had to lift her in the pew. And my grandma really did not like it. She felt like she was a burden in the, and she loved St. Catherine's. And we talked to the priest, and he said there was nothing we could do, that we could not leave my grandma on the side aisle, that every Sunday we would have to pick my grandma up and put her in the pew. And if we wanted to take her into communion, we had to pick her up, and it was this whole spectacle. And so one day the nuns from Mount St. Vincent came into La Casita, and they were talking to my dad, and he was talking to them about this dilemma we had. Did we continue taking my grandma every Sunday to St. Catherine's, where that was her church? Or did we not? And what would we do? And the nun was like, she can come to Mount St. Vincent, and she can just sit in the back, and we have no problem. And so when I was younger, I think I was like probably in 8th grade, 7th grade. Every Sunday, I started bringing my grandma here, and we just rolled her in. And there, if you go into the chapel, there's behind the pews, they just put chairs like this and enough for my family. And so my grandma, we would roll her in. And I came to church here every Sunday with my grandma until she died. And when the Pope came, they asked my grandma if she would like to be here for Mass, because she was one of the only people who came consistently every Sunday from the community outside into Mount St. Vincent's Church. And so there is a picture, if you go to La Casita on 36th and Tijon, of my grandma in this chapel being blessed by the Pope. And so she felt like such a burden when she lost her leg, and she felt so crippled. And she felt she was treated so different and marginalized. We had to buy her a special chair when she made tamales at La Casita. And the only place that she said she didn't feel this way was at Mount St. Vincent home. And to the point where she said the worst thing that ever happened in her life, one of the worst things, she lost 2 children, had stomach cancer, lost her husband. And she said one of the worst things that had happened to her of all that was losing her leg. And one day we were talking, and she was like, one of the worst things that happened to me actually changed my life, because I got to meet the Pope. And so I just say that to all of you. I thought about that. I was like, how do I explain how how much I care about Mount St. Vincent to a delegation like INC, right? So I just decided that sometimes storytelling is the best to relate to people. And I'll just make it full circle that sometimes in our lives, we really think that it's the worst thing that's happening to us, and that life is really hard, and that we're not going to be able to overcome something, and that we've been marginalized, and that we've been treated badly. And sometimes those things actually can turn into something really powerful and really good. And so I'll just say that because some of the, this last time in office since July has single-handedly been the hardest professional thing I have done. This migrant crisis, I was not prepared for. And I was coming in from my first term with COVID. So I spent more time my first term as an elected official on Zoom than I did in the community, which is really hard. So I'm like, I feel like I'm coming from a deficit because we weren't in community with COVID. And so then we come in and we have a new mayor, and I'm proud to work with Mayor Johnston. I think that he's a very thoughtful, compassionate leader. I love our 6 new colleagues, mentoring six amazing people. But personally, for me, Northwest Denver has had a migrant crisis, and we had the biggest encampment for migrants ever in Denver's history. We never had an encampment with over 300 people, and we had it on 26th and Zuni. And I went there every morning and every night, not to give charity. I went there every night to give out trash bags because people couldn't go to the bathroom, or people couldn't have food, or people seriously, all they really wanted were trash bags. Like, how hard is life if that's really what you want, is at night your council person is providing trash bags? Because I had citizens complaining about trash. And I had citizens complaining about other things. And so I found it a niche, and it was actually trash bags. And that this migrant crisis, being in the middle of it, has single-handedly been the hardest thing I have done professionally. It's been tough. I've gotten people who in Northwest Denver are really compassionate. Our faith community has stepped in. We have the Highland Mommies and Friends group who have filled a gap where government hasn't been able to. And on the other side, we still have people who feel like they're illegal and they shouldn't be here, and that we should not be opening our borders. And to the point where one of our community members called me and said he was going to take out his Second Amendment right on me and my family. And he knew exactly where I lived. And so I've had a halo camera outside my house, because this man calls every Friday and talks to my staff and leaves me a voicemail to remind me that I am not representing him, because I am helping these illegal people, and that we need to send them back, and that we need to use, I need to use all my resources to be able to send them back. And on the same, right, who I represent, I have people who are helping the newcomers and who are welcoming them into their own homes, and who are providing them very basic necessities like a shower curtain that you don't think you need when you get an apartment, or food. And so I say that because I've been thinking a lot about my dad and my grandma lately, and this has single-handedly been one of the hardest things I have dealt with professionally. And I've done a lot of hard things. I rezoned neighborhood. I brought an overlay to Harkness Heights. I changed the name of Columbus Park to La Raza Park. I mean, I'm not like, I don't just easily go, I go towards conflict more in this job, I would say. And I just want to say that I have, with this, I think that I will learn a lot. And when time passes and it's a little bit more removed from me, I'll know I'll have become a more compassionate person. I know that I have had to listen to both sides. And at the end of the day, I'm leading with my values, and you may not agree with me, and we may not agree sometimes with each other. But right now, as we come towards the November election, there's a lot of division in Denver. There's a lot of division in our community. And I would just say, I'm going to go towards my grandma, that one of the hardest things that's happened to me in my professional career hopefully one day I can turn back around and say that it's one of the best things that's happened to me in my career. And it's one of the best, I'm not there yet. I'll be 100% honest, I'm not there yet. I'm still living it, but I just wanted you all to think about this as this place that when they had no homes and and children had nothing, Mount St. Vincent has always been here for our kids. And I truly believe that those are one of our most valued assets in our community is our children. And so thank you all for making intention, right? We have intention behind everything. You did a land acknowledgement. Thank you for intentionally choosing this space because it really is welcoming, and it's been welcoming for generations of children. My grandma, who is, you know, in a wheelchair. And so I'll just end with that. Those are the things that are happening in Northwest Denver. You all know, I've come to before you for land use. I love land use. So right now I'm rezoning the last portion of accessory dwelling units for my neighborhood. I just asked if we could come back. President Torres and I are working on a charter change that I won't go into right now, but hopefully President Torres and I will be back here in front of you maybe next month or the following month to talk to you about a ballot change, a charter change. So our charter has to be voted on by the people. If you want to change it, that would come in November. I won't talk to you about the mayor's goals because I think we're separate branches of government and we should have our own goals, but city council is working on we're going to have a budget and policy retreat May 3rd. And that's where we come together as city council and we write a letter to the mayor to start thinking about the 2025 budget. So President Torres and I, for the first time since Councilman Albus Brooks, are actually leading our council members into figuring out like what our goals want to be for city council. So we're doing that March 22nd at Carla Madison. And so we can have ownership over those goals and they can be vetted by all 13 of us. And I think like we all know that, right? If you have ownership and from those, then they can say, oh, well, we believe in these goals. So we're working on that. And so a lot's happening in the city, but I just want to say thank you all. You all are the foundation. And I told Mayor Johnston the other day, he was like, oh, this is so much work. And we were talking about the migrant encampment. And I said, but if you all haven't been to the web building, in the web building, it says, what is the city but the people? You all right here, IMC, are the people. You're the foundation of all this work. So thank you for showing up on Saturdays. Thank you for the work that you do. And thank you for asking really hard questions of us elected officials because we make us better. Sometimes we might get defensive. Remember, we're people. Sometimes we have bad days. Sometimes we have really like challenging personal situations, but keep asking those really hard questions and keep holding us all accountable because at the end of the day, you really all do make us better. And I'll thank you all for having me and thank you, Amber, for inviting me.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. That was great. That was amazing. With that, I think, Monica, if you want to come up, and I just want to do a quick shout out here to Amber, who not only arranged this, but Amber was the District 1 spotlight this month in the newsletter that came out from I just want to say Congresswoman Sandoval, no, Councilwoman Sandoval. So just a highlight to, part of Inc., part of the Harkness Heights, board here, and just appreciate getting this space. And Monica, if you want to come up a little, yes. Congratulations, Sandoval. And maybe you want to switch your slideshow. Great, and I will pop over here.
Okay, there we go. So I think a really good segue to introducing you to Mount St. Vincent is that I would like to, right on the heels of Councilwoman Sandoval's family love of tamales, because that was something very special growing up that I shared as part of my family experience. I don't know how to make them from scratch anymore because the recipe went with my grandma. And they're actually a lot of work, so they're just kind of easier to buy. So there you go. There's my plug for your family restaurant. So I would like to thank Keith and Amanda for inviting Mount St. Vincent to host today's meeting. I would like to thank the Denver neighbors who are here today. That you are attending from our home base here in Harkness Heights, which is a very special campus to us. I'm Monica Segura-Bunch. I am the Business Development Manager at Mount St. Vincent, and this is Anna Berry, who is our Development Manager. And you're going to learn more from both of us in a minute here. But what I wanted to make a point because Councilwoman Sandoval talked about her history with Mount St. Vincent. And actually, even if you don't have any history with Mount St. Vincent, prior to today, when you entered the building this morning, you became a part of our history. Our history is 141 years young. And with that history, we were started by the Sisters of Charity of Leavenworth. And I don't know if all of you are familiar with the story, but it was really to address a crisis. In 1883, children were being left by their parents to go find work in nearby mining towns. And so the sisters were charged with a mission, which is to, as you can see up here, to partner with children and families to heal beyond trauma into a healthy and hopeful future. That mission started Mount St. Vincent in 1883, and it's never left. So here we are 141 years later, and now we're primarily run by a lay team of caregivers, but the mission is the same. And why is that? Why is there that relevancy of Mount St. Vincent today that's just important today as it was on day one? Because we're trying to address two crises. Councilwoman Sandoval already mentioned one of them, the migrant crisis that applies to their children. I monitor leads coming through our website. We're already getting calls from schools and from teachers saying, you know, we have a kiddo who just came to the United States. They're having some issues from separation anxiety from the only home that they probably have known most of their lives, right? If they're coming here as children or their families, maybe they weren't able to stay with them. What can we do? So we're trying to address that crisis. And we're also trying to address the crisis, the mental health crisis among youth, not only just in Colorado, but across the nation. I'm sure everybody here is up on news, and this isn't any, revelation that we're just talking about today. It's been going on for a long time. So what I want to talk to you about is give you a quick overview of how our continuum of care, and it's blown up here, but not on the screen, but that's okay. We support children and families across a continuum of care that includes 3 core programs. We have an early learning center or preschool for all children in the community, ages 3 to 5. Our pediatric behavioral health care program are these 3 core components in the middle. We have outpatient therapy, in-home therapy, day treatment and education. And then our 3rd core program is our foster care program. So these are all the services that Mount St. Vincent.
You can just hit the cursor, the right cursor if you want.
Oh, okay.
That'll go to the next slide.
Okay. So thank you. Let me give you just a quick peek into each one of these programs, and then Anna and I will be available at the resource table after the meeting. And if you were fortunate to meet Sherry at the front desk when you walked in, she is the longest termed employee at Mount St. Vincent. She's been here over 30-something years.
36 years.
So, thank you, Anna. Okay, we're in the 30s, right? She has graciously offered to give you a tour of not only the chapel where the Pope came in the chair that he sat in when he came to visit the children is still on the altar. So you will see what that Councilwoman Sandoval referred to. And we have pictures along the walls here on this floor from his visit. And then we do have a museum upstairs. So Sherry is the one who has gone to great lengths to protect and preserve the history of Mount St. Vincent that people like Anna and I, the newbies, compared to Sherry, that we're able to benefit from all that great knowledge. But let's take a quick peek at our programs. So the Early Learning Center, again, it's for all children in the community, ages 3 to 5. You might say, well, why does Mount St. Vincent have a preschool program, right? It originally started as a therapeutic preschool program because, again, we're primarily taking care of children suffering from trauma, abuse, and neglect. As the needs of the community changed over the years, so did that program. It's a pretty vibrant program, a lot of active Highland mommies in there, as well as local moms and dads, in this community. We are trying to expand the program too, so we're hoping that we can do that maybe by 2025. We offer year-round programming, which a lot of people don't know about. So we have preschoolers coming in the summertime, and then how many of you know that you could swim in an outdoor swimming pool on our campus? Woo! Okay, man, I got 3. That is really cool. So the swimming pool is in the back. And again, why does Mount St. Vincent have a swimming pool? It primarily started as a therapeutic resource. And then I don't know about you, but when I was in preschool, if I saw an outdoor swimming pool, let me have at it, So then we opened it up to the preschool program too. We still cook meals for the kids in the preschool program, in our day treatment and education program down in our kitchen. So they're served breakfast and lunch every day that they are here. We do accept CCAP money through the Colorado Child Care Assistance Program. And we also are part of the Denver preschool program. We are partners to them. So any Denver resident with a child 4 years of age or 3 years of age and qualifies can apply for credits, and we will accept that as a funding source as well. Okay, you told me euros, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, our pediatric behavioral health program. This is the second of our 3 core programs. There's a lot here because you need to be able to meet children and families where they're at, right? So how does Mount St. Vincent do that? We have an outpatient therapy program where we provide individual and family therapies. Everybody hears telehealth around therapy, right? We all think like, wow, isn't this a great option that we can do telehealth? It's not always the case for a kiddo suffering from a mental or behavioral health issue, right? We offer it, but we do tell families it may not be always appropriate. We have expanded our hours until 7 p.m. Monday through Thursday for busy families. That was huge for us. It was huge for families. Those appointments go fast. In-home therapy, what is that? These are for families with more intense needs for their children. We provide in-home therapy for families living within a 25-mile driving distance of our campus. And then our last therapy is day treatment and education. And that's probably the one that I get the most questions about. So when you enter the front building, there's a newer looking building off to the left of the campus. That's our school. So a lot of people aren't aware that we are a school licensed by the Colorado Department of Education. If you are familiar with in any way, shape, or form with special education, that's what our school does. We have school social workers, we have special education teachers. And what happens is that school districts, that's our referral source. They identify a student who's struggling in their school environment. They contact Mount St. Vincent. That kiddo can come to school on our campus. They enroll as a student in our school. And we follow their IEP plans. They get the behavioral and the educational support that they need. And what's the goal? The goal is to return them to their school of origin. We can have kiddos here for 1 semester or a year, if not longer. It just depends on the needs of the student. And to give you an idea of how few resources there are for this type of programming, sometimes we get kids as far away as Greeley. They come on Ubers, they come on school buses, they come with their parents driving just because there aren't a lot of resources. It's not common, but we have taken kids as far away as Greeley. Foster care. Our foster care program is unique from so many different perspectives, but the quick rundown is that we place children newborn to the age of 18. And we also train, certify, and provide 24/7 support to people who are interested in becoming foster parents. We take care of them the whole 9 yards so that they could have a successful experience once they have a placement in their home. And even if things don't go according to the book, Our case managers are there 24/7 to support them for whatever they need once they have a placement in their home. We're hoping to offer a therapeutic foster care program in 2024 for kiddos who have significant medical needs. Foster parents still need to go through all the, regular certification requirements, and then they just do extra to become a therapeutic foster family. And the last point I want to make, which I think I have, according to that clock, 2 more minutes here, is that Anna would like to talk to you about how you can support Mount St. Vincent.
I can do that in 2 minutes. So my role at Mount St. Vincent is on our development team, also known as our fundraising team. Amber and I joked one time when she was over here that, everyone has said, will the building turn into apartment after our residential program shut down? And I said, not if we have anything to do about it, but community support is critical to that. So some of the opportunities that we have where you can check us out and support us, donations, whether that is through your work as a corporate donation, through an individual donation, any monetary support, I'm your person. Come connect with me and let's talk about what might work if it's a one-time gift, or you want to become a recurring $5 a month donor, whatever it might be. We have a wish list. You could go to our website. Monica and I have been working closely. It's being updated for the development team itself, but our website is msvhome.org. And you can go to the donate tab, and that's where you'll find everything kind of development focused for fundraising, for events. You can reach out to us for doing group service projects. So one thing that we get asked a lot right now is about coming in and volunteering. And we used to do a lot of individual volunteers with our residential program. That's not necessarily the case right now post-COVID, and because we are more a day school than a residential treatment, there are just some things that have changed. But you can do group service projects. So as a group, you all could get together and we could set something up. That is easier for us to do than individual opportunities. Again, we'd love to talk to you about that. The big thing coming up for me is this will be our 18th annual Play Around for Kids golf tournament. It's August 12th at the club at Rolling Hills, which in itself is a gorgeous experience if you're a golfer and never been able to play there. But that's our signature annual fundraising event right now. And I have literature out on the table for that. And again, take a tour with Sherry at the end of today. The history that she knows and the stories is like none other, but we would love to be able to connect with each of you and really just thank you and welcome you into the building today.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't know that much about Mount St. Vincent at all. I've just driven by this place for 15 years and it's such a magical place. So please take some time after the meeting. I hope you have a little bit to walk around and do the tour. It's an amazing facility. So we're really lucky to be able to be here today. From that, let's move on. Jane, ready?
Sure.
For the spotlight.
She's all
All right. Yeah, you wanna come here? We got 2 slides for you. I can scroll if you want.
So,
Just hit the right first and then scroll it. I think. Yeah.
so good morning, everyone, and I really appreciate being in this building. Thank you to all who preserve it and make it happen. So wonderful way to start our day to hear such great humanity in our community. I had the pleasure again this year of putting together the youth awards that we started in 2019, I believe it was, and to give some funding to some youth organizations to do civic activities. A couple of my team members who helped review them are here today. Sally Kurtzman, Mark Kaber, and Miles Hangelin were the 3 judges that helped review the grant applications that we received. So we are giving these grants away this year. We added an additional $500 that we had because one of the other grants that came in it was hard to separate out all of them because we find that we're really rewarding for this. The amounts of money that they receive are not huge, but we've followed up with some of them, and what they've done over the years with $500 or $1,000 is really pretty amazing. So these are the seeds that we're planting with youth to understand how they can be a part of their community and be recognized for that.
Jane, could you explain this picture real quick? I thought this was pretty, I always think this is impressive. This is the climate action group from,
From East High School that
That
we
we
funded a
funded,
few
yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they ended up having the vice president come and honor the work that they had done with the environment. So, sorry, I wasn't familiar.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Okay. So one of the groups that
you want
received
to
the
scroll down to the next slide, has all the groups that you're gonna talk about.
Right. This one?
Yep, there you go.
So, thank you. We're giving $1,000 to Consumption Literacy Project. We funded them a few years ago. They're mostly in Montbello, Northeast, Park Hill, College View, Harvey Park. It's called the Urban Seed Project. Funding for student-directed planting and teaching of gardening in March through June in 4 gardens. Channeling food waste into compost to build beautiful, nutritious soil. Building community leaders by growing food together that is given to the community. Since 2020, they have grown thousands of pounds of food for their families and others. I have a video that they put together a couple of years ago that the students made, and I'll send that out or we'll have it available. Some of us have watched it a couple of times. I mean, it's a spiral garden, which it was a vacant lot. And they have built this spiral garden and it is really beautiful. It has done so much of the last 4 years, 5 years, I guess now. And the video that the students learn and how to put together this video, they're doing it all themselves. They even have their drone operators, you know, I mean, so, but the food that they have grown out there is just remarkable. And they've really learned about composting. So they're learning the whole process and they're taking it home and they're so proud of what they've done. And with $1,000, it's been just amazing what they have done. And their leadership is fabulous. We are donating $500 to Athletics and Beyond. Its leaderships and students all reside, attend school and work in Montbello. The funding will go for training, materials, and program incentives in a 4-week building community wealth mentorship on entrepreneurship, marketing, accounting, and inventory as a path to small business ownership, which we thought was a great way to get kids involved who may not have other educational aspirations, but they'll really learn how they might be able to have their own business, which we think is really smart. We're giving $500 to Colorado Young Leaders in several Nest neighborhoods. It's a funding for a youth-led community service event. It's a shared meal partnered with Denver Urban Gardens to address the intersectional issues of food access and youth mental health issues. They will purchase the gardening and planting equipment and food and will provide transportation so youth throughout the area, and this is the whole metro area that gets together for this, can come together to break bread as an effort to fight continued isolation that permeates among young people since COVID-19. They're really addressing the fact that, you know, when kids didn't go to school, they were doing all this kind of, you know, in your home kind of take care of yourself and everything. They're really addressing those mental health issues through food. $500 for Families Against Violent Acts. They participate in Montbello, Green Valley Ranch, and Park Hill. Funding for Heal the Hood. It's an event that they do every year. It will be resources on providing 22 students a stipend for their work in making this event happen. So, you know, we've all learned that we all need incentives, youth need incentives. So this is a volunteer effort, but it'll be a stipend for all of those students to help make this happen. And it will be an event that brings in over 100 people. And then $500 to the Whittier Neighborhood Association for the plan for Whittier, Cole, and Clayton. They're bringing these kids to do the civic work that we really love. It's transportation and lunch for 20 to 30 youth attending the CDP neighborhood planning sessions. They're gonna go to these neighborhood planning sessions that we've all been at. And it'll be at the Ford Warren Library in May and June, learning about asset-based community development. Come on, what more can you ask for? So they'll get the tools and the vision to be shared, and then they will do their own version of this and share it with the CDB. It's, you know, it's just the kind of work that we wanted. So we were so happy with the grants that we received and just feel so proud that we're able to make a small difference for these organizations who work in our community with the youth. So that's what we did.
Thank you, Jane.
I know Jane mentioned this briefly, but I do want to say that, you know, one of our focuses this year was to make sure that we had a DEI, we did this with DEI intention. And we wanted to make sure that one of our grants went to a Nest neighborhood, which is, you know, some neighborhoods that have been identified by the city that are, you know, under a lot of pressure from development and can be low income areas too. And I think, if I'm correct, all 5 actually are in Nest neighborhoods. So we're very excited about that. And just thanks again to Jane and the rest of the committee that was able to pull this off this spring. That is great. And then Erica Rogers.
Right here.
Perfect. Erica, welcome. Welcome to, is this your first AIM meeting?
No.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome
Oh,
back.
Yeah,
Welcome
first in
back.
person though.
Yeah.
First in person.
Well,
I think,
since
yeah,
the
we do have your
pandemic.
slides here.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, you can just, you know, I'm sure you know.
Sure, at some point.
Of course.
For our comms guy.
Thanks.
Great.
Just hit the bottom right arrow. to go
Bottom right
forward.
arrow.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Hi, everybody. I'm Erica Rogers. I'm the policy director in the Department of Excise and Licenses in the city. So a little bit about us. I see some familiar faces out there. We issue all of the business licenses in the city and county of Denver. So we have over 100 different licenses. We don't have a general business license, as a lot of you know. We have specific licenses with specific requirements, all hopefully developed to address the health, safety, and welfare of our community. So we really kind of look at it as, how can we protect consumers? How can we provide regulation as a tool to ensure that the businesses are operating in a way that is, you know, innovative, and a way that can have wealth creation in the community for the small business owners or large business owners, while also protecting the customers and patrons of those businesses. So it's a fun balance. A little bit about me. Like I said, I'm the policy director. So my job is, I have a small little team and we take a look. Our goal is at least one a year, but usually we end up doing way more. But doing a comprehensive review of a particular licensing ordinance or rules. So what does that mean? We have the Denver Revised Municipal Code, which governs all of our licenses. It lays out the application requirements. It lays out what might give us cause to deny an application for that type of license. It lays out some unlawful acts. So if you're a business and you're doing these things, you can have your license revoked. We do a lot of interplay with the state on some types of licenses, including marijuana and liquor licenses. But we also issue the local licenses for all of the food licenses at restaurants and grocery stores. We do security guards, which are not regulated by the state. Short-term rentals are another big one that we do, high volume, and you've probably all heard of the residential rental license for landlords. You know, that's a new license that Councilwoman Gilmore really pushed for. And on January 1st, we entered the phase where it's no longer early, everyone has to have a license. So we are about 40% of the way to getting everybody licensed, which is actually really good given just license programs nationwide, especially the size of the residential rental program here in Denver. I think we're looking at a total of 50,000 licenses that have never been issued before, right? And so a lot of the big, you know, companies and, you know, commercial developers that have apartments and stuff have come into compliance. Now I think it's, you know, the outreach to the small mom and pop. Basically, they own one property and maybe we don't have any connection with them because they've just been doing this for 20 years and they have no idea because they're retired and they're enjoying their life, right? So, you know, we do have some outreach efforts planned to get those folks into compliance. We are just kind of making sure that everyone gets into that regulatory fold. So that's kind of a little bit about our department, a little bit about me and what my team does. So I'll talk about some other things that are new and some things that we've got going on that I think you'll be interested in. So for some of you who have been around a while, you may know Molly Duplashain. She was the policy director before me under our former director, Ashley Kilroy. The new mayor has appointed and Molly's been sworn in as our executive director. So she's actually been serving in this role since about early 2022. She served the final couple of months of Ashley Kilroy's term after she retired from this role. And she was the interim executive director, and then she was named the permanent executive director by the mayor, just recently sworn in. So she's been with the city for about 20 years. She started in the budget office, and she's been in excise and licenses. She was also in the Office of Marijuana Policy when that was stood up in 2013 or 14. So she's super knowledgeable about the city, about the department. She's got a great approach about kind of seeking that balance of supporting our businesses while also protecting our community. So she's here for the long haul. She's been sworn in. You'll see her name on orders and things like that. So that's our number one update. Our next update is our office is under construction. So if you're someone who likes to come talk to a human in person at our counter, we are currently under construction on that second floor office where we've been for a really long time. So you can find some of our staff at the front counter where community planning and development is, just across the hall from where we were in those glass doors. So we do have a few folks there at all times who can help if you need in-person help. I know some of our applications are now kind of online only, but that said, those applications are always available. You can use the city computers if you want someone to help walk you through those, or you know someone who's just not tech savvy and they want that hands-on help. That's still available. We're just in a temporary location. So if you come to find us and you can't, that's why. But there should be signs and there should be people to help you find us. So right now we're gearing up for some spring outreach sessions with a lot of our licensee groups, right? So we've got one coming up in a couple of weeks for peddlers and pedicabs. Those are kind of always a springtime. They need some reminders about what they can and can't do, especially with 16th Street Mall construction. We've got Rocky's opening day coming up on the 5th. So just reminding them kind of for safety purposes, right? You walk sidewalks, you need to remain in motion if you're a peddler, right? People who might be requiring a physical mobility assistance, right? They need that sidewalk space, so don't block that for them. All those kinds of good stuff. So we have that coming up. We're also doing some outreach sessions for food licensees. This is one where last year we made an improvement where so this is kind of an insight into our team, right? We were looking at the food fees and we wanted to put the food licensing online so that people could renew or apply from home on their computer if they want. So when we were doing that, we were looking and we noticed that there were like 50 different kinds of fees. And it was like based on seats and then the number of employees and then the type of thing that you're doing. And we were like, okay, does this align with public health, right? Is there some sort of reason these all cost different amounts? And what we found was no, not anymore. It may have at the time it was passed, but so we streamlined that. A lot of the fleet, all the application fleet fees are flat now across the board. And then the licensing fees are stackable. So and they're much lower. So, you know, based on what you're doing, you just check the boxes on the application and then it'll tell you exactly what your fee is. You no longer have to do the weird calculus to figure out, kind of like the IRS, right? It's like, you know, how much do I owe you in taxes? I don't know. You figure it out, right? Like, so we've kind of shifted that way. So we're doing some outreach sessions for those food operators, small restaurants, and mainly just to kind of help them kind of understand. Obviously, as a city, we don't have a super fancy high-tech online system. It's very governmenty. So, you know, we still find that people want that help. So even though it is online, it can be a little confusing. So we have that coming up. And then we'll also be at the 420 Festival to help provide some education for cannabis consumers. We have a program that we launched last year, first of its kind, and it's like a recognition program. So some of you may know that our cannabis licensees in Denver have to submit a social impact plan that's been in place for many years. And it basically says, here's how I interact with the community around me and make a positive impact. A lot of people were doing a lot of things, as kind of that requirement. It's kind of unique to cannabis. We don't really require that for any other licenses. So, as a way to kind of recognize that work they're doing, we created this program called Cannabis Cares. And they can earn badges, right? There's the minimum amount of activities that you have to do to meet the legal requirement, right? But a lot of folks were doing more. And so we created this program to recognize those folks who were doing more. And so there's 5 areas where they can earn a badge. Community engagement is one that, you know, if they do a lot of work with their RNO, or they host like a canned food drive, or they partner with youth to distribute, you know, school supplies or backpacks or things like that. Voter registration drive, things like that, they can earn a badge in community engagement. So we have community engagement, contracting, equity, social equity, diversity inclusion, which is different, and then sustainability, so environmental kind of things. So we've got some folks with those badges, and now we just want to educate consumers in the community that if you'd like to shop with your values, you can do that. And you know, the businesses will start getting these badges more if their consumers are asking for them. So if someone's super, I only want to buy my cannabis from a place that is engaged with the community, or you know, is doing things to help our environmental impact, you can go to our website, you can look and see who's earned the badges. And if the consumers are looking for them, the businesses will do more. So we're going to be at the festival kind of educating people about that. The final kind of broad update is we now have a LinkedIn page. So if you're on LinkedIn and you want to, you can follow us. Our comms team tries to put together some cool stuff that we share there. So it's worth checking out. All right, so now I want to talk about 2 specific things that we're working on that I talked to Amber about, and that I think will really interest you all. The first is with our hearing rules and guides. So our hearing policies and procedures. As a lot of you know, especially if you sit on like a zoning board within your RNO, we have hearings in the department as part of the licensure process for liquor and marijuana licenses. We also have hearings when a license has been denied. People can always request an appeal of that. That's part of their due process, right? And there's also hearings related to disciplinary action. So if usually a bar, restaurant, marijuana location, sometimes individuals like short-term rentals or a security guard, if they have violated the law, we issue what's called an order to show cause, and they have to show up at a hearing and kind of, tell us why we shouldn't kind of issue a violation and a penalty, right? So we have a lot of different kinds of hearings, and we have this 70-page document with 2 additional memos called our hearing policies and procedures. It's very like almost like legalese, and it is supposed to be here's how hearings work, but it's not very user friendly, as many of you probably know. So what we've been working on is a project to make that more accessible and more user friendly for regular people who don't live and breathe hearings and licensing like us nerds do on our excise and license policy team. So what we would like to do eventually, we're in the process. So at the end of last year, we moved several of the provisions into agency rule. Those are published on our website. We had a public hearing. Nothing substantive, no substantive policy changes have been made. What we're doing is by putting those in rule, they're carrying the weight of law, right? So sometimes our hearing officers would say, well, this is just a department policy, so I can do something different if I want. And sometimes that's okay, right? Sometimes we want that flexibility, but there are certain things like due process and, do the rules of the Administrative Procedure Act apply? Or, what's the process if there's going to be a subpoena, right? Those things shouldn't be different depending on the hearing officer, right? Those should always be the same. So we put those things into rule, and they have the full legal format that they need to have for that. We went through that process. So that's about a 12-page document. What we're now doing is working on getting that 70-page document with the 2 memos and the provisions from the rule into a guide, right? And so we want to have a guide for needs and desires hearings, and then a guide for those denial appeal hearings, and a guide for the show cause hearings, right? So that everyone's not looking in the same 70-page document, right? And especially for needs and desires, which are very popular, like for community members to participate in. We want it to be readable. We want it to be useful. We don't want you to have to flip to different sections, right? We want it to walk from start to front, or from beginning to end, right? what you can expect when you show up, what you need to do. Hopefully in not as much legalese either, because it's not the rules, right? The rules have to be in legalese, the guides don't. So we're working on those. We're almost ready to reveal them. We are also working on a streamlined document delivery process. That's a fancy way of saying, if any of you have gotten the notifications from our department, there's 75 documents attached to the email, and you're like, what are these? So we're gonna try to streamline them so you only get a few, right? And some of them may be a little longer, but then in the guide, it'll say, here's what this is. Here's what you do with it. Here's what you need to know about this page of that document. Here's the petition form. Here's what you do with that. Give that to your petition person. They have to do this with it, right? And so it'll be a little bit more instructive. Obviously we can't give legal advice, and so that's a weird line to walk about how you present your case or what you talk about or what evidence is going to matter, right? That's still all on the participant, but at least if we can be a little bit clear about what the process is and what documents you need for it, that's going to be the goal. So the idea is that we'll have something that we'll initially publish on our website, and then there will be a feedback form, and it'll say, what do you like about this? What do you don't? Let us know. I'd like to have a focus group if possible. So I've got some names of folks. If you're interested, definitely let me know. And just kind of after about a month or so of it being published, say, okay, what is still unclear, right? Like, again, we live and breathe this. So something that may feel very straightforward, someone might read it and say, this is not straightforward at all, Erica. You are being way too confusing. You need to bring this down to a regular level that is not, super nerdy. So that's kind of what we're working on here. I linked our public hearings website so that you can check it out. The rules are published there. I linked those directly as well. The hearing policies and procedures and memos are still up there, but we will send out a notification when we get those guides up with that link to the feedback form, with an email address if you want to be on a focus group, and so information like that. So that's coming Q2 of this year. That's going to be one of our big agency goals that we want to get done. So we're very excited and we look forward to hearing everyone's thoughts. So that's number one. The other big thing that we're working on that is of interest is this term natural medicine, right? What does that mean? Colloquially, these are magic mushrooms, right? So as some of you may know, we have several ballot initiatives where voters approved both at the local level in 2019 and at the state level in 2022, different varying, voter initiatives related to natural medicine or psychedelic mushrooms. So in 2019, Denver voters approved kind of a deprioritization of the criminal enforcement. So basically, personal use is no longer going to be a high priority for criminal enforcement here in Denver. We had other priorities for safety. This was a low concern. We were having low numbers of incidents, and so it got knocked to the very bottom. In 22, the state voted on the ballot measure, you might remember. And so there will be a state system for licensing several different license types. The General Assembly last year passed a bill that kind of, tweaked some provisions, added some things, filled it out a bit. And so there will be 5 different license types that the state will be administering related to natural medicine, including facilitators who kind of guide someone through an experience, cultivators of mushrooms, manufacturers, so people who take maybe a raw product and turn it into like a capsule or a gummy or something. What I'm missing one, testing facilities to, test for various different things, and then healing centers where the medicine can be administered, so by a licensed facilitator. So that's kind of the state framework. The state agencies, both the Department of Revenue and DORA, Department of Regulatory Agencies, are working on rules. The agency that will be kind of licensing the facilitators, that profession, they've released some draft rules. They're out right now on their website. The other group is starting their rulemaking next week on kind of what the healing centers will look like, right? Those will be, they're both looking to have those rules in place by probably Q3 so that they can begin accepting applications, which they have to by law by the end of this year. So why am I talking about all of this? I work for the city, right? So Denver and specifically our organization, our agency will be exploring the need for whatever local regulations we need to prepare for this. We'll be doing that all of this year. So because localities can't opt out and they can't frustrate the intent of the voter ballot initiative, we wanted to be ready because these licenses are going to be issued in Denver by the state, whether we're ready or not, right? And so we want to take a look. We just announced that we are going to have a work group for this. We'll meet 4 times at the end of March, April, May, and June. So we'll be kind of going alongside the state as they develop their rules, but we'll be looking at matters of local concern, right? Are there any zoning issues that we need to address for this new type of activity? Are there, the state has some location restrictions for the healing centers. They have to be, I think, 1,000 feet from schools. Are there any additional that we might want here in Denver, given our specific needs of the community, right? I know there's accessibility as an option, right? Or as a priority. So we want to make sure that if there are any Denver specific rules that are needed to ensure that medical access, while protecting health, safety, welfare, we want to be ready for that. So if you know someone who has a lot of knowledge about any number of topics related to natural medicine, you should encourage them to apply for our work group. All of the work group sessions will be made public via Zoom. They will be published on our website, and we have I linked sign up for our natural medicine bulletin. If you want to get updates about what we're doing and links to those videos or those meetings, that's a way to get notified of that. So I encourage you, if you're curious or you know someone who is, that's a great way there. We've also got our website, denvergov.org/natural medicine, where we've got links to all of if you want to read all the statutes and ballot initiatives, you can. If you want to check out what the state's doing, we have links to their stuff. We've also linked to the 2021 report that went to city council from the Denver. Okay, I'm going to mess this up. There was a committee, a panel basically that you'll hear from Jason, he was a part of. They put together a report to city council kind of talking about the effects of that 2019 ballot initiative. So there's some good information in there as well. So essentially, we are in the learning phase, we are in the listening phase, and we are holding this work group so that we can hear what Denver needs or doesn't need to be ready when these licenses start getting issued in 2025. So, yes.
What is different between DOR and DORA?
Good question. So DOR is the Department of Revenue, and DORA is the Department of Regulatory Agencies. So one of them covers all of the licensed professions. So like the facilitators, they also license, barbers and, clinicians in the state. So any individual licensees. The other one houses the MED, which is the Marijuana Enforcement Division, as well as the newly created Natural Medicine Division, NMD. So yeah, it's a bit confusing. But that leads right into questions. So I've linked our general question line here. I'll also leave some of my cards. So if you want to take them, I have just not very many, but feel free to reach out as well.
Yeah.
But any questions? Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to make the case for the hearing process and making it easier for good neighbor agreements and the provisions in good neighbor agreements to be included. Right now, the notice for a hearing, which frequently is the neighborhood's first notice of a license, becoming due or changing, whatever, is very short. And lead time to get good neighbor agreements negotiated and provisions submitted to you guys is very onerous. And so to me, it seems if you've got an agreement, if we have an agreement with a licensee, those provisions should be added to because they're both being agreed to, they should be added to the license, regardless of whether they're part of the public hearing. And so I guess I'd like to make the case that good neighbor agreements are very important to our neighborhood. And right now, getting those provisions in the license is very difficult and very onerous. And I would encourage you guys to make that easier.
Okay, I will take that feedback. I will say one thing, and because I would always be remiss if I didn't mention this, right? We cannot put every condition that's in a GNA on a condition of the license. There's some legal stuff there. So no matter whether it's a condition on the license or not, I always tell people, you can still enforce that good neighbor agreement. It's just a private right of action, unfortunately, right? And the city only has the legal authority to enforce certain types of conditions. So for example.
And that, you know, that's understood. We've gotten those in, so there are provisions, but being clear of what can go in, what can't. And being able to have that, you know, my favorite thing is that, or most frequent is when a license, turns over, and the new owner goes, you know, this is not enforceable. You know, take a hike, neighbors, and that shouldn't be.
Okay.
It would be really appreciated if you and your team, whoever on your team, would watch the INC presentation on good neighbor agreements. Gertie Grant and I worked on that together, and we have a lot of information. I would love it vetted by your office.
Okay.
If you could watch that, and we can link it to you if you don't have it. But to Mark's point, I think it would be great to be able to tighten that up as we roll out our RNO 101, how you do things, best practices. And we're going to start with that as a base. So any helpful hints and clarifications would be terrific.
Okay, yeah, happy.
I'm with Salt Lake Citizens Group, and I was walking along Federal to check out something one of our members asked me about, and I saw at a former dollar store, jars cannabis coming soon. And we've gotten no notification to the RNO about this. And it's a huge store. I don't know what they're gonna be selling there or growing there, but it would be nice to we get stuff for liquor stores. I mean, a coffee shop wanted to start selling wine, and we got about that, but we got nothing about it.
So I will say if they haven't applied with us yet, we wouldn't be able to notify you. So they may have purchased the facility and they may be advertising, but they may not have applied for the license yet. So soon is, I don't know how soon, but will you email this and just ask if they've applied yet? Because we can always
picture of it.
Yeah, we can always double
They
check.
got signage up, and, you know, first of all, I think they have to go through certain agencies for signage.
Yeah, there are certain signage rules. So they may just not have applied for the license yet, would be my guess. Yeah, because we don't. And Gertie, did you have a question?
Yes, I sure do. I want to follow up on what the question that Mark asked. And one of the challenges for RNOs is the requirement that written documents be submitted. Is it 7 or 10 days before the hearing, which really shortens the time that we can negotiate a good neighbor agreement. And I realize, I think in the language it's may, and the hearing officer may waive that requirement. The challenge for us is there's some that don't, number one, and number two, why does that apply to a good neighbor agreement? I can understand it for the petitions because it's wonderful now that excise and license is now going through and checking the signatures before the hearing to find out how many of those are valid. That's great. But the good neighbor agreement, the only part that excise and license is concerned with are the terms that the agreement is requesting excise and license and the director approves to be put on the face of the license. And it would seem to me that hearing officers should be required to agree to admit a good neighbor agreement into evidence on the day of the hearing. Second question.
Can I answer that one first?
Yeah.
before.
Hopefully I won't forget the
I was gonna say, I'm gonna forget the answer. So,
You're younger than I am.
it's a forgetting competition here. So one thing to know, that's a good point. So yes, the reason for the 7-day in advance is so that the hearing officers can review all of the documents and each party can review the other party's documents ahead of time. What that does is it helps the party stipulate to those at the beginning of the hearing to say, yep, we've reviewed them, they can go in, no questions asked. That said, you can always bring additional evidence to the hearing. You just have to lay a little bit of foundation, it's called. And so the hearing officer or the other attorney or someone's attorney may ask you some questions about it, like, when was this executed? Was this voted on? You know, just some basic stuff so that it can be admitted. So it's not that the GNA can't come in, and it does say the hearing officer may. It is our policy, like we tell the hearing officers, you know, as long as the right foundation's been laid, those should come in because, you know, it might take more time. So I want you all to know that, like, if you submit it ahead of time, that just means the other part, you know, everyone can review it and it can be stipulated to without having to lay that foundation. Whereas if it comes in and you need a little bit more time and you bring it that day, it's not that it'll be excluded, you just might have to answer some more questions about it. So does that happen? But we can look at some other tweaks to make with the GNAs, but I do want you all to know that you can do that.
Second question.
Okay,
There are some licenses that are over 100 years old on South Broadway, which is the area near where I live. And those licenses are being transferred. Several of them, many of them, not many, some of them don't have good neighbor agreements attached to them. So there is no hearing. There is no need at that time to establish needs and desires, which is one of the reasons that good neighbor agreements were developed by Excise and License to reflect the needs and desires of the neighborhood. What we are trying to do is when the license is transferred, contact the transferee, the new buyer of that license, and asking them, will you enter into a good neighbor agreement that most of the other businesses on Broadway already have agreed to? The terms are not more arduous for you than they are for any of the others. Are you willing to join that group of good neighbor license holders on Broadway without having to go through a public hearing? And what I'm trying to figure out is, what are the criteria that we need to do in order to get that happen? And will it happen? What's Excise and Licenses policy on in that situation where there is no need for a public hearing with needs and desires?
yeah, that's a good question. So I think the RNO ordinance, the RNO notification ordinance requires us to notify you of hearing. So if there's no state requirement that sort of transaction requires a hearing, it doesn't trigger that notification. However, what we could look at is exploring our notification system, and we could always do more notification. So we could look into, like, when there's a transfer, if there's no hearing.
We get notice.
We do get
notice of the
Okay, so we do,
transfers.
okay,
We already get that.
okay.
The issue I'm raising is what gets the terms of the good neighbor agreement, if we're able to negotiate one with the transferee, what puts the bug in the system where you are to say, wait a minute, here is a transferee, a new license owner who is willing to have terms on the license and get that to happen.
Yes, gotcha. Okay, so this is another fun fact. You can get conditions put on a license at any time. You don't,
Even when the license is not being renewed,
correct,
any time of year.
any time of year,
Hot stuff.
hearing or not, yes. So all you have to do is email, I would say probably our records management, or you can always use this one and it'll get routed there. But all we need is something in writing from both parties that they want those conditions on the license. So it would be something as simple as the RNO emailing us and CCing the applicant saying, we've agreed to have these 3 conditions on the license, here's what they are. And then the business owner replying all and saying, I confirm, and then our records manager does it. and then they're on the license.
That's wonderful. Third question.
Can we, you already, we got a question from,
Can this go offline?
yeah,
Faster, and then we can, whatever it
Well,
is,
people here might be interested.
whatever it is, we're happy to post it or something, but I just think that,
yeah.
Yeah,
And I-
sorry, I'm way over everything.
but, I mean, maybe it's.
Contact information, there's no contact information.
Contact
It's all deleted. It's deleted on the notices we
Yeah,
get.
That would be my question.
For the-
It's very difficult. You have to go back to excise and licensing and says, okay, how do you contact the applicant? And then it seems like much of the time you get a lowly paralegal and some law firm never respond. And it seems very much as though the applicant's contact information, public
Not necessary.
information should be included on the documents review.
And the person, there's a person online that also has a concern about communication. So it sounds like there's communication that needs to happen, that they were saying that they've been trying to contact you all and that it's been taking months and leaving voicemails and nobody's getting back to them. So maybe that's something that to consider.
Yeah, maybe we can relegate this to a meeting directly with you and your staff. So we don't take all the time to try to work this out now.
Yeah.
Yes, I've left some of my
My
cards.
suggestion.
You can email me directly. Please also email this email if you email me directly, because this logs all the inquiries we get. And I will tell you, the best way we can ask the budget office for more staff is if we have logged questions and we can say, hey, look, our staff can't get to these. Our average response time is 14 days. We need more staff. Especially with the budget issues happening. So please use
wanted
this
to-
one so that it gets tracked.
Confirm, others on, Joel Noble says, yes, the omission of applicant contact information is the department's most frustrating and bizarre moves in recent years. From Joel, who's in the midst of that a lot, so.
Okay.
And that's another thing is maybe we could set up a community meeting in the next month or two to address all these concerns and, get on a Zoom or something.
I'm also happy to come back. So yeah, we'll talk about a way for some issue solving.
Thanks for all you're doing.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for
joining.
Perfect. And now, just a quick, administrative issue. I don't know if we addressed this, but the bathrooms are down the hall. Feel free to get up. There is lots of extra food, so keep eating food and drinking coffee. So, Jason.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Jason. I'm with the City Attorney's Office. Same thing. I brought a bunch of cards. I'll just leave up here. You're always welcome to reach out to me. So I am in a role that's new to me, that's been around the City Attorney's Office for a while. I'll explain to you. So I may not be able to answer any and all questions, but you can always reach out to me and I can always give you the best legal answer that most people would get if you ever talk to a lawyer. It depends. But we will get to the heart of things. And if we can help out, that's our role here. Let me tell you a little bit about kind of who I am and how I got into this work. I've been a lawyer since 2004. I've always been in the courtroom. Most of my time was working actually with a law firm and some judges. And then I started working at the city attorney's office doing civil litigation. So whenever Denver got sued for something, which you can imagine happens, there's a lot of parks, there's a lot of people driving around. We have fire and police and everybody else. So my job was to try and get in the mix of all that. I did that for a number of years. Then I went over to the DA's office in 2010 and I stayed there until I started working for a nonprofit a little more than a year ago, maybe about 2 years ago, just representing victims in court whenever they've been victims of crime. And then I got a wonderful opportunity to come back to the city attorney's office in their prosecution and code enforcement unit, where I worked with a number of talented lawyers, and I was a team lead in 2 different courtrooms, so prosecuting all kinds of things under the revised municipal code, which might involve noise complaints, assaults. Our office files more domestic violence cases than any other organization in the state of Colorado. So Denver particularly takes that crime and any issue related to domestic violence very seriously. And so we go and get after those and try and get just results wherever we can, which can result in a lot of different things. So that is the prosecution and code enforcement unit. Then a couple months ago, I got invited to join the neighborhood partnership team, which is something that I'm very passionate about because it's just a different way of looking at all of our community-based problems and issues that come up. I've always done these things in the courtroom, but the greatest results that I've always seen come from community engagement. I went to a law school whose logo, lawyers love Latin, right? Is Lex Pro Urbe et Orbe. Law for community, law for the world. It doesn't just work in the courtroom. I was talking to somebody earlier today, and I believe that's really true because we can solve a lot in the courtroom and we can get a lot of things done, but unless we carry that momentum out into the communities and unless we're able to learn from communities what things are happening, we don't have an opportunity to deal with them. And so we're within that section, and there's a number of very talented people that I work with. And I forgot to add one person that we added in here. I'll talk about Justin in a minute. So I work with Michaela Salaji. It's a two-person team. Then our neighborhood partnership team. She's a very talented lawyer that's always been a prosecutor here. She's also got a master's in government administration. So she's the smart and organized one. I like to think of us as art and science. And she's the organized one that responds super fast. And I'm the guy that's much more, I like the improv of jazz. So we work very well together. Brad Whitfield is our director. He's a lifelong prosecutor, very talented, always looks to these issues both in and out of the courtroom. The really higher level look of how can we solve these things with community engagement, compassion, intelligence, and staying within the bounds of the law. Our director is Marley Bardowski. She is a wizard. I wish I could clone her because she's got a hand everywhere throughout the city. And the last person that I had meant to include here, someone we just recently brought over. There's a man named Justin Toomer. He's not a lawyer, but he is our diversity, equity, and inclusion administrator for the city. And we reached out to bring him into our team because he just offers a lot of resources for us because there are lots of communities that reach out to us. There are neighborhood associations or other organizations that reach out to us, but also there's a lot of other vibrant communities within Denver that don't know that we could be there to partner with them. We have a very large Atrium community or a Sikh community or other communities that have needs that might be specific to them. And Justin's really doing a great job to help us interface with them. I'm working with the transgendered and non-binary community on some issues between them and some neighbors. And Justin is going to help me work with them and the police department because there's been some friction between the two of them, but they're all trying to do the same thing, make sure everybody's safe and that victims of domestic violence or other crimes have a safe place to go. And the police are doing their job, but they're doing it in a culturally sensitive and competent way because it serves everyone's interest better. But this is why I feel like I have the best job in the city because I get to be Julie, the cruise director, and put some of these people together. So rather than us having a beef between two organizations, and then maybe somebody's charged with resisting arrest or failing to obey a lawful order, we can have those conversations on the front end and understand what people's needs are. Not only can we kind of step outside of what could result in a conflict, oftentimes we build better relationships that work in the long run. And then because I'm a prosecutor for most of my career and at heart, it gels perfectly with the needs for what? Community safety. That's the whole idea of neighborhood prosecution. And so that's this model that's been around for a while, started in the 90s, this idea of having long-term partnerships between law enforcement, our businesses, people in the community. And the idea is not only to hold people accountable, but are there other more creative ways to do it? Kind of tease this idea of being Julie, the cruise director. So as a prosecutor, my life's pretty simple, right? Something happens, a case gets filed, it winds up with me in the courtroom, and it has a very linear progression. That's not always how life works. So some of the things that we've dealt with, a motel task force. So there are motels that can be uninhabitable or dangerous or have a number of issues. And so we'll work with human services and planning and development and the fire department and the police department, and we'll collaborate to all come in to see if we can't solve those issues. Now, education is a large piece of that. Cooperation is a large piece of that, but there is also an enforcement piece to that if it doesn't work. Just yesterday, I was able to resolve a number of cases for a motel over on I-70 in Vasquez that has since 2017 had a number of blight issues, which in and of itself is not a big deal, but it also compromises someone's lodging license. There's also safety needs. There was meth contamination in there. There wasn't running water. There's a number, we have to get those things resolved. And we also want this person to still maintain their business and be able to serve that community. She's in the process of selling that. So there's been some other things that happened on that, but I think it was a wonderful resolution. I saw the Denverite was talking to her yesterday, so you might read about that. But those are some examples of some of the things that we've done. So in that, our idea is to try and go out and be proactive about things. Like I said, in the courtroom, a lot of things come to us, which makes it pretty effortless. Now it's really this idea of how do lawyers come out to the community and see, well, what is it that we're facing? And every time it always surprises me to learn all of the things we don't necessarily know. When I first got onto this team, when I was still in the courtrooms, there was not far from here, there was an issue of some people living in tents in a backyard. They're using crack, and I showed up and drinking out of the hose and living outside, and they're living in cars. So of course, people lived in the neighborhood. Like, look, we realize these people have addiction issues. We want to work with them on this, but also can't just have people living out in backyards. So I went with our homeless outreach team. I went with Health and Human Services, an inspector from them. We had our community resource officers from the police department, and I went out there because sometimes there are questions. Can we do this? Is it going to implicate the Fourth Amendment? Do they have a right of privacy here? Can we go contact this person here? Is this an arrestable offense? So it worked out in a really great way because we were able to show up, and the man that lives there is in his 70s and he lives there with his mother who's in her 90s. The man in his 70s also uses drugs, but that wasn't the question, right? Could I go write up a warrant and start doing all that and hit this house? Sure. Is that going to solve the problem? No. The real problem is this guy's house has been flooded and all of his floors are rotting out. We want to know if we got to go help this guy, fire department comes, are we going to fall through the floor? Who's taking care of your mom? What's going on this end? And first of all, when I showed up, he thought I was a realtor and I was trying to hustle him out of his house. Because, it's changed over here, right? So that was a real concern for him. And he's got this big lot. And I'm like, no. I'm not here to try and get you out of your house. We don't want to take your property from you. We want to make sure that you're safe, your mom's safe. And these guys that are living in the backyard, we're going to go have a conversation with them. And they moved on. And if they come back, we want to know from people in the neighborhood, and we want to know if we can have that conversation. And if that conversation doesn't work, what other tools might there be? Does that mean enforcement? Does that mean having to prosecute somebody? And sometimes it does. So the big thing I've really emphasized here is it's all about partnerships with our community. Worked with the Asian Pacific groups here in town, because it's a super diverse community where if I have a victim of a crime who's Hmong, might be very different than someone who's from Pakistan, might be very different from someone who's from Mongolia. And we might need to find interpreters, not just court certified interpreters, but someone with a cultural competence that understands these things. We deal a lot with the migrant population here. When there was over on Zuni and Spear, and we were trying to help move some of these people along and get them services. I remember meeting with a guy who's telling me, like, I'm not so sure I want to get onto a bus that the government just showed up with. Didn't even occur to me. Like, yeah, it's a lot different when the government of Venezuela wants to put you on a bus. You don't know where you're going to go. So why should you trust us? So strengthening those partnerships with cultural competence and compassion so that we can start to work towards solutions. If our solutions don't work, there's also enforcement options, and those things have to stay on the table. Some of the other things that we do, we're down a number of lawyers, so Michaela and I get our hands into a lot of different things. We have passion projects that we want to get after. I used to work in the Boulder DA's office for about a year in their community protection division, and I have a number of passions dealing with contractors who don't do the work that they say they're going to do and are scamming people, elderly people who can't take care of their houses, and how can we service them instead of citing them for having the weeds too high? Because that is something the community wants to deal with. We don't want to deal with blight. You can't always get to those because Denver's very busy, it's very active, and we have a lot of things coming to us all of the time. But we do deal with public nuisance and abatement. The idea being the city doesn't want to take someone's property. We also don't want to just board it up. Abandoned properties aren't good for neighborhoods. They aren't good for property owners. They aren't good for businesses. But if they're cultivating marijuana, if they're running a house of prostitution masquerading as a massage parlor, we don't want those businesses in that neighborhood. Don't want to board it up for 3 years? Not necessarily. Would I like to work with that property owner so we can get somebody in there that's not dealing methamphetamine? Yes. That's better for the community. So while we have these enforcement tools, we have the privilege of being able to use a lot of discretion to see if there are other ways that we can come to try and reach solutions. So we engage those communities by building and maintaining relationships with all the city agencies. It allows us to discover a lot of issues. So please reach out to us if there are things we're not a member of your HOA if there is one, and we can't give you legal advice. And oftentimes I don't have the answer, but I may be able to find somebody who does. There may be somebody in community planning and development or deals with the neglected and abandoned buildings, or the health department or the fire department. They might have the answer, or maybe we can get you in the right direction. And our response looks at the big picture. How can we try to solve problems that the community needs solved in a way that makes sense, but is also lawful? Here's some of the people that we work with. Denver's huge. And one of the things I really enjoy about working for Denver, I've worked for Denver since 2006, is the fact that everybody I've met that works for Denver, they work really hard. They're really trying to get it right. Don't always get it right, but the people that work for Denver really do a great job. And that's everybody in animal protection, the fire department, planning and development. You met Erica from Excise, small team doing a bunch of work, and everybody's trying to get it right. And for some of us, it might be just that. It might be our motel task force. How can I pull people together so we can get this business either operating as it should, or if it's going to be a real problem that pulls a lot of crime into your neighborhood, maybe it has to go away. Maybe we have to shut that property down. Or maybe it is a bar in the neighborhood that's running after hours. And now they're throwing crazy raves and causing all kinds of problems, or bringing a lot of problems into your neighborhood. Those are things we want to know about to see if there is a way that we can address those things. So this is how you can reach us. This mailbox is, we're having some IT issues, so you can always reach one of us at these telephone numbers. I have my email address here. We're always available to you. We try to be very responsive. We're in the courtroom a lot. Hopefully we are in the community a lot. So reach out to us at any time, and I would welcome any questions if you have them. If not, reach out when things come up. We are here for you. Sir.
Could you describe if you have access to or use alternative dispute resolution, ADR,
Yep.
mediation? Do you work with outside entities? Because you guys have a limited staff.
Got it.
Is there a way for neighborhood issues to
Yep.
go through a process like that?
Yeah, there is a city mediator. There's only a couple of them, and I actually was just kind of sitting on the sidelines for a mediation between an organization and a neighborhood organization where they've had some difficulties. And he's great. There's one of him. And so the person that was
That's
really
not good news.
well, there are a couple of mediators, but they're taxed, right?
Do you have contracts for private ones, contract that you guys recommend? I mean, this is what I'm talking about. I mean,
Yep.
The need is huge.
The need is.
And that should be a focus for solving problems.
Couldn't agree more.
Because you guys don't have the time. My experience is
It's true.
you guys are way overtaxed.
It's true.
And the private sector can help.
It's true. I love this idea. I did a mediation course myself that was about 40 some hours, and in civil litigation did a lot of mediation, and it works. And I believe in it. Some of that is a budgetary question. That's above my pay grade. If we can contract with outside mediators or get more people, I would like to see more of that done. One of the things we've done that's already kind of hardwired in, every police district has a community resource officer. I don't know if you've ever met them or talked to them, but
Yeah,
they
they
are
come every
outstanding.
month.
They're great. So, and they try really hard to facilitate a lot of those conversations where they can. You mentioned good neighbor agreements. I'm working with some downtown and District 6 on just those. That's where our mediator came into play, because there's some things we couldn't do on our own end. And so there was a mediator to work with that. But yes, mediators are a part of the game, and we use them wherever we can. Anything else, ma'am? Please.
There's a house, a 2-story duplex with 4 units in it that blew up last August.
Okay.
And on South Lincoln, just north of I-25, which is as you know, a major runway between I-25 and downtown. And it's very visible. It has not been demolished.
Okay.
And I know that there are a lot of permit processes that they're going through, but it was last August, and it happened to happen during a meeting when Michael Johnston was meeting 4 blocks north of it. The chief of police and the fire chief were both at that meeting, and the house blew up. I don't know why. but it really doesn't look good for the city of Denver that that building has not yet been demolished.
You're speaking right to my heart. This is one of the issues that I'm pretty passionate about, because I don't believe it's great for cities to have blighted buildings. It doesn't really work. So one of the things Michaela and I have done is started to work with community planning and development, neglected and derelict buildings like 2 weeks ago. Because we keep hearing about stuff like this and how these permits take a long time, and there's a receivership process. There's one of our motels that has had a permit scheduled for demolition for a long time, and it still hasn't happened. So there's another section that deals with that. Michaela and I have just inserted ourselves into this 2 weeks ago.
Have
What?
fun.
Yeah, what can we do to spur this along? That's one of our superpowers, is to be a pest and to nudge. And so here's an example of one that happened over a year ago, different house. And we went out there and saw the place all boarded up, and because 2 weeks ago we started dealing with some of this. Now I found out there's homeless people living inside of it, and they're causing all kinds of havoc, and it's a duplex attached to some other guy's house, and now his pipes are freezing and he's got all kinds of problems. Well, I managed to get a hold of the property owner yesterday, and Monday I'm gonna get this thing sorted because it's not great. And some of these other things that have to get torn down, we're that nexus between people to try and figure out, like, what's the hang up in the permitting process? Can we do this? Can we take on the hearing if other lawyers are unavailable or too busy? And so feel free to send me a message on that particular property as one that I can look into. You mentioned it was on Lincoln, and I can't remember what.
400 blocks south.
Great. So I'll remember that, but also if you want to send me a message on that, I'd be happy to look into that, take it back to our team and see if there's anything we can do to kind of encourage that to move along, or where that's at in the process. I know time's of the essence, but can I take
Yeah.
anything else?
I think that's probably good. Tom, can you take this offline?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'll send you some information
Please.
about a boarded up building in our neighborhood association that was vacant, and then people moved into it, and then a fire burned it, and
Oh man, we're getting a lot of those, and that's something that Michaela and I are just starting to tap into, and thanks for bringing that to us, and thanks for the invitation. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. A couple of awesome speakers today. So thank you. And I think Erica might not be here anymore, but thanks to Erica. We are running about a half an hour behind schedule. But we do need to get through the elections and our DEI policy approval today. So apologize that if you do need to leave early at 11. Feel free to do so. But I think Rue is going to run the election portion of this. And then, yeah, keep eating coffee and keep taking seats. And there's bathrooms down the hall. So.
Thank you all for your perseverance on this. We don't mean to stick this at the end, because this is important. I think what has happened in Inc. over the last year plus is really to sort of increase the level of corporate governance and accountability, and really looking at who we are and how we're really rolling out the mission of Inc. and how we're really trying to help RNOs, engage RNOs, and the team has really been terrific. We will start our election process with the open seat of president. I would like each of the nominees, by the way, there is a nominating committee that was active this year, making sure that the bylaws were followed to the letter, that each person nominated had met all the requirements to be nominated for positions. And for that team and that committee, I thank them. So we will begin with president. We start with president. We have confirmed a quorum for this meeting. So we will be taking votes at this meeting. So first I'd like to ask Keith to come up. And even though these statements were out for all to hear, we'll ask him to talk really fast.
I'm just gonna open this, see if I can open this up. This should have everybody's candidate statements.
Yep.
And I'm just gonna keep this short. My candidate statement got sent out, and so I think everybody's hopefully had an opportunity to read it. When I came on board as the president last year, I said we need to do a couple of big things here. We needed to stabilize the organization because we had some tremendous leadership turnover in the fall of 2022. and we needed to build a sustainable organization for the years to come. And I think, you know, we've done that, and I just want to thank the board for kind of narrowing in on this vision this year. We've really done that. I think we restarted the awards ceremony. We raised $17,000 thanks to this woman over here. So we really appreciate that. And I think that, you know, we have a vision for moving forward that is centered around diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is something that I think Inc. continually needs to keep top of mind. And Congresswoman Sandoval mentioned this earlier. You know, I think what,
No, probably not.
you know, clearly Inc. needs to keep working on issues of diversity, equity, inclusion, but I feel like I've tried to bring intentionality, which is the word she brought in here, to our decision making, and trying to make sure that, you know, when we are making decisions, that we're trying to make sure that we're reaching out to communities that aren't represented here, and reaching out and making sure that we're giving the opportunity for dialogue with other communities out there. And I think that's something I want to continue focusing on this year. I also am very excited that, you know, we have this RNO 101 working group that's kind of starting to look at how we can connect with RNOs better and how we can be a resource for RNOs. And then also, I think this dialogue that we continue to have with the city is just this ongoing conversation, you know, and I think a lot of people have come to me and they want Inc. to be more of an advocacy organization. And, you know, because it has been in the past. And I think that we kind of find that balance. And one thing that's big for me, and I'll kind of bring this up later too, is just, sorry, we need to be an open space for conversation in the city. And I think that there's very few spaces anymore for that. And we need to be able to take in everybody's opinion and have constructive dialogue. So thanks. That's it.
Jeez, I should have invited him up here. Look at his statement online, just kidding. Okay, I would like to bring the nomination of Keith Meyer to a vote for the office of president. All those in favor in the room, please raise your orange ticket.
So we're gonna do in the room first and
We're
then
gonna do in
online
the room first, and then we'll be counting online.
after.
And
Right.
who's counting? Who's counting?
Secretary should be counting.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
Yeah, yeah.
1, 2.
While that counting continues, I will ask those online to please use the raise hand. And please raise your hand to vote yes. We're gonna take the yes votes.
Okay, so the yes votes online, the people that are voting online have to be Denver Inc. delegates.
Correct. You must be a registered delegate of an active registered RNO.
And we are recording this meeting. It'll be available on the Denver Inc. website. I'm getting requests to record locally. I don't know what that is, so you can get the recording online.
So while Adam is counting up the online votes, I would ask if anybody in the room is opposed to this nomination, raise your orange card.
I've got 6 online votes.
I have one opposition.
One opposition.
If anybody, are you finished on the online?
Yeah, so you can put your online hands down now for yes.
And you got Jerry, who's got a thumbs up.
Okay, we can take those down, and again, since this is recorded, we can vet this a little bit later just to confirm our numbers. But there is one opposition in the room. Is there any opposition online to the reelection of Keith as president?
So raise your hand online if you're in opposition.
Okay,
Jerry, do you want your thumbs up, or do you want to put that down?
Cause
you can't vote both ways.
Exactly, you're gonna negate your own vote. Okay, he took it down, that's fine.
Okay, all right, so as those votes are counted, we will bring the vote count to a close. Judy, how many in the room were in favor?
16 in the room,
And do we
have a count for in favor?
Do we need to abstain?
not on a
Okay.
vote for this.
Okay.
Did, Adam, do we have the number of,
There's
Yays?
no opposed online.
no opposed
Okay.
online? Okay.
All right, so, Keith, congratulations,
Yes.
you've been elected president. So we are going to move on, and, this is one of those you almost laugh when considering the duties of a secretary, for an organization like this are so big. We're very thankful that we have Judy Baxter, and, we are going to ask her to come up, or,
I'm just
if
gonna
you'd
stay
like.
right here.
She would like to stay there. Give her her statement is online.
Yeah.
So you're able to look at that as well. But Judy, just say a few words.
Yeah, just a few words. I am, it's an honor, to be running for reelection. I filled in the seat for this last year, a vacancy, but I've been a delegate since 2018 and been on the board since 2021, I think. So 3 years I've been on the board, one capacity or another. And it's an honor to try to support INC going forward. And I love being out in the neighborhoods and connecting with places like this. And my biggest thing is related to RNO 101, but it's a bigger mission. It's about RNO engagement, not just re-engagement, it's about engagement. What's top of mind and need for RNOs, and how can we be of service and advocate and empower RNOs? That's my bottom line. That's
Thank
why I'm
you
here.
very much.
Yeah, Judy.
All right, those in the room that are in favor of the reelection of Judy, please raise your
I
card.
don't think I should.
Yeah, you
Count
should.
my own.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, of
Okay.
course.
Hopefully you said.
I don't like shoulds, but. You should.
And while those are being counted, I would ask those
Okay.
at home on Zoom to please use your raise hand to vote in favor of Judy. If that is your vote, please do so those could be counted.
Looks like 7 yeses online.
Okay, we will go ahead and ask the room if there is any vote in opposition to the
Okay.
reelection. of-
Online, you could put your hands down, sorry.
Anybody in the room? No? Anybody at home, if you are opposed to this reelection, please use your raise hand option at home. All right, with that, there were all in favor here. How many votes in favor in the room?
17
And
online 7.
no opposition, so
opposition.
congratulations. Judy. Okay, congratulations. It's a heavy lift, so thank you for doing all of that
Yeah.
work. Now we have the at-large positions. And I'm gonna go ahead and pull this up. Lamone Knowles will come up for just a moment and, but her participation has been so valued. I feel so lucky to have been on the DEI committee with Lamone and to get to know her personally, just a delightful human and a very busy one, as most people are. And I'm so thankful that she's agreed to run again. So Lamone, do you want to come up and say a few words, please?
stand here.
Yeah,
You can stand there.
you're in a
Yes,
good
you may.
spot, yeah.
Al will pick me up.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you're good.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Lamone Knowles. I'm running for re-election for at-large delegate, and I am currently the chair of the DEI committee. Later on, we'll go into what DEI really is, because I suspect some fears about what DEI is. We're not hiring anybody, but this is about equitable community engagement. So about my background, I retired from Denver Police Department as a victim advocate for 8 years. I'm an alumni of the DPD Citizens Academy, also an alumni of the Aurora Citizens Academy for the police department. As a candidate for Denver City Council in District 8, where I really learned the inequities in our community. I live in Northeast Park Hill. I retired from the VA, working with veterans for 30 years. So I learned about the inequities with veterans when they're being treated, when they come back. I'm a dedicated community service worker. That's why I work for the government. Grassroots, I feel, is the cure, which is what we are in the RNO community. And the RNOs could be a great training ground to learn how the city works. That's why I'm running for re-election, and that's why I'm going to hang in with the DEI committee. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lamone. From those in the room, if you would please raise your orange card as delegates for the re-election of Lamone. Okay, all right, and those at home on Zoom, would you please use your raise hand reaction button to vote for Lamone if you are in favor of her re-election, please.
Looks like we have 5 online.
Okay, and the total in the room, Judy?
17?
Is there anybody in the room that would like to raise their card to oppose this re-election? Please do so now. Anybody? Nobody? Anybody at home? Please use your reaction button and raise hand if you were in opposition.
Looks like we have 1 opposed on.
Okay, with that, we will congratulate Lamone as and our last delegate who is up for a position today is Mark Tabor. I've just gotten to know him just a little bit through our RNO 101 group. And Mark, would you mind coming up and just telling folks a little bit about yourself, or just to the front of the room here?
Just briefly, thank you very much for the opportunity to run for this position. I'm a 40-year resident of Denver, and I have the benefit of being able to, I also worked for Parks and Rec for 13 years in a director position. So I have that role. I presently am a community leader in Baker neighborhood as president of our RNO in the Baker historic neighborhood. And I'm super excited about the initiative for IMC to be able to support RNOs like mine and like yours more effectively all over the city. So that's been my passion, and I'm greatly honored to have an opportunity to serve.
Thank you, Mark. For those in the room, if you are in favor of having Mark join us on the board, please do raise your hand, your orange card, sorry. And for those at home, if you would use your reaction raised hand, please do so now to vote for the election of Mark Tabor to the board, please.
Like 6 on Zoom.
All right, is there anyone in the room who would like to oppose the nomination of Mark Tabor to our board? Okay, none. Is there anyone at home? Please use your reaction button to raise your hand to vote no if you feel appropriate. Anybody?
Dave, can you put your hand down?
Okay, well, congratulations. Mark. Thank you. Okay, Keith, should we just invite Lamone up? Do you want to dive into DEI? All right, we'll just move on to this last. We are pushed a little bit for time, but it'd be great if we could keep you all for one more moment.
Let me switch back over so I can pull the slide.
Thanks, Lou, for running the elections.
Yeah, thank you to Luke.
Oh, we got
All right, so.
Lamone, if you could come up with me to present the DEI policy, and we'll take the vote. I think, as you all know, Lamone presented at the last meeting on the DEI committee, and the policy that has been approved by the Board of Inc. We'd like to now take this vote of the delegation. After you want to do some, if there are any questions, I think it was,
This is the Q&A session,
Discussion.
and then there will be a survey monkey that goes out to all the delegates.
right.
Starting tomorrow, and it'll run until the 24th. And so that will give everybody that's, not here, time to look at the discussion, if there's any questions that happen right now. So we're having a discussion on it now, and then we're gonna do a survey monkey out to everyone.
And take it back to our R&O, right?
Yeah,
No, well, that was to be done last week.
That-
So
that-
the way
yeah,
that-
last month.
Yeah, or excuse me,
Okay.
last month. So really, this closes the Q&A session
Okay.
today. So it was presented, the Lamone presented the policy and talked about the process last month. And what we're doing today is just opening for questions, and then we are going to close the Q&A and take the vote. The vote will be by Survey Monkey, but it will go out immediately or as soon as we can get it out afterwards. But it will close the discussion on the policy, and all that will be left is for our vote to be taken. So are there any questions? And I will say that our committee, Judy and Lamone and I had worked on this for some time. Also taking into account some of the advice that was given on DEI over the last couple of years. So this isn't a new issue. It's just finally getting to this point. So any questions in the room?
I just had one. Well, we voted in favor, at our last RNO meeting of supporting the policy. But there were questions about how it's gonna roll out. And so if that information can be forthcoming later or sent to, whether there's trainings, whether there are, some implementation, steps that came from my membership, and I'd like to get back to them on that.
Okay, let's pull up do we actually have it?
so.
It wasn't coming up.
Try to go to can I do this?
Yeah, yes, you
try to
drive.
click on.
The DEI
Yep,
policy
try to
found
click
here.
on
Okay,
that.
that's what I,
Yep,
okay.
there we go, great.
So I'm, the old lawyer in me wants to just walk you through how the nerdy stuff in this goes. The actual implementation bullets are in the policy itself. So Inc. is not going to be changing its mission statement, its outreach, but in the policy itself, Inc. will use these policy bullets to actually do its work. So see diversity, inclusion, and equity as fundamentally connected to the Inc. mission and purpose. Reach underinvested and underrepresented communities to assist in empowering such communities through the RNO process available to them. Look for opportunities to pool resources and expand offerings for underrepresented and underinvested communities by connecting with other organizations committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, and utilize an equity lens in bringing educational opportunities to Inc. and RNOs, including presentations on city policies, legislation, legislative matters, and committee subject matters presentations. For example, what you heard today when we had the presentation about the educational and youth awards, we had specific intent in viewing those communities that are nest communities that may be underrepresented in this room today. And that is an example of the implementation. So really, it's right in the policy. We do not plan to take other active measures to try to really change the real mission. It's implementing the mission in a way that is more inclusive. It's reaching out to neighborhoods who may not have the resources that some of our neighborhoods have, who may not have membership dues, and who may not have an organized group of individuals that have coalesce to be able to figure out how to be an RNO. We are going to be reaching out to them now. We are going to bring resources through this RNO 101 handbook on what it takes to become involved, to utilize the city's ordinance that they probably don't know about. So you can think of a lot of neighborhoods who are not members of Inc. Our goal this year is to use this policy and these implementation bullets to change that. Do you want to add to that, Lamont?
And furthermore, for the existing RNOs, you're not gonna be losing anything. Okay? If anything, once we get through the RNO 101 and then we roll out the community engagement piece, you're gonna learn how to reach out to diverse groups in your areas. Okay? I mean, if you go to your meeting, if you look at your meetings right now, who do you invite other than folks who are already members of your organization? Do you invite anyone else from maybe some nonprofits that work in your neighborhood? Or do you invite anyone from schools or other organizations? So you're gonna learn how to do that within your RNO. So it's not about you losing anything. And furthermore, we're not hiring. This is not an affirmative action program. This is about being for real. All kind of people live everywhere now. I was one of the children who was bused to Southeast Denver to integrate the schools, right? So because of that experience, that's when I got exposed to other people. So if it's good enough for me, it's good enough for you.
See why we love her. So with that, are there any other questions from the floor? Yes.
In light of what has happened in Florida with the DEI, after we vote on this, will this be our stand completely?
This will be our policy as a nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofit. It will stand there. What is happening with some challenges to affirmative action programs in other realms, we are not going to be there. We don't have grants to give out. We're not, it's not an elective base. Anybody who qualifies can be a member RNO. So yes, it will stand as a core value. And that's why the policy is being adopted.
And as I said earlier, we are not hiring anybody. This is about community engagement. If there's people who are not comfortable with that, then maybe this is not for you. But it's not going to stop what we're trying to do with this committee.
Thank you.
I just have, one thing is, we have, I just want to acknowledge a couple of things. One is that we've gotten feedback from, and we appreciate RNO feedback that, is saying, is this necessary? Is this something that we need to do? And I just want to say, it might not be my opinion, but I want to share that we have gotten that kind of feedback. And I think we're addressing those issues today. I also want to say that, when it comes to intentionality, like we have with Youth Awards, one example of this is, forever Inc. has done our award ceremony typically at hotels, which are nice and very nice places. Last year, we went to a Latino-owned business in Sun Valley, which is one of the most struggling neighborhoods in our city, and we did that with intentionality to do that, and it turned out to be a great experience. And that's the kind of thing that we're talking about here doing, is trying to be more intentional with how we use our dollars and how we use our interactions with the community, instead of feeling like that we're mandating anything.
Are there any questions? Yes.
Gee, more of a comment. I just want to congratulate this group because this conversation's been going on for at least 3 years, and that you guys have gotten to this point. But even more importantly, you're implementing those things without even having the policy. And I think that's important. That's a mindset change, on the board for, being intentional about things like doing it in locations where, it hadn't been done before. So
thank you, Trupti.
Yeah.
Because Trupti was on the board when the discussion started so long ago. Any chat questions, and we'll try to be mindful of the fact that we're running over a little bit here.
There was something from Bruce, talking about glossary words that I think you addressed. Do you want to say anything about that?
I will just say that, in these types of policies in nonprofits, and again, the old lawyer nerd, I did a lot of research in this area. I'm familiar with it. My husband and I both serve on different nonprofit boards. And of course, it's been a discussion in the last numerous years at this point. And it is important, we felt it is important to have shared understanding of what we mean when we use these words, because they could be emotionally charged language. So having a glossary, and I looked at many from different nonprofits, so that when we talk about these things, it's not just what one person may think and another person may have a different opinion. It's a statement of what those mean. And so we borrowed it, we gave it credit, but we borrowed language from one that we thought was particularly concise on the primary definitions used in this DEI space. And we used it from the San Diego Foundation. And we did have a comment that we didn't really need to use outcomes in the social justice. And my comment back to Bruce is that this isn't about testing or trying to make sure that we follow through with specific outcomes. Number one, this is about all people in all communities in Denver. And number two, when you borrow something, you don't change it really. You know, we're giving credit to the team there that did this, and so we're using it. And while I really appreciate it, I did respond specifically to Bruce. We're happy to share that response if anybody wants it. But there were two comments of that sort that we addressed, both in the same RNO. So, but that was all the questions that we got from the time when Lamone presented to now. Are there any other chat questions?
No.
Okay, we'll bring this
There
Q&A. Oh,
I wanted to bring up Eleni.
Yeah, sorry, there was one, thanks.
And, well, she maybe had two, but will INC be offering any materials in Spanish or any other languages as part of its DEI policy to engage more community members?
That's DEI.
Yeah.
the problem with an organization that doesn't have a lot of resources is that would be a fabulous thing if we are able to do it. There are a lot of, and we've talked about this at the board level, there are a lot of AI resources that will help do some of that translation. We are looking at that right now. We simply have not had that. Trupti, do you have a comment on that point?
Yeah, so are you talking about translating your entire website to?
No, just the DEI.
Well, as much as we
No,
can.
it's about materials and stuff.
Actually, you should translate your entire website to have it in both places. I don't think it's super hard. If you all can reach out to people in your community who have this skill. I did that as probably one of the first things as Sunny president was got it translated, which in fact, we just changed the new website and I gotta get it done again. But my point is, it's doable. And
Yeah.
I bet you someone knows someone who can put in 10
We
hours. to do
have certainly talked about that, and now we're gonna make sure that Trupti helps us make sure. We have talked about it, it's not in my wheelhouse. But you know, old dogs can learn new tricks, except for the owl, I'm not learning that, Adam. So those
Yes,
who have resources,
And to work on.
and Eleni, it's a great question. Thank you very much for bringing it up, because it is our goal to continue to implement this with great outreach, and we cannot reach other communities unless we make it available in their language, on their turf. And that is a wonderful goal, and anybody who can help at home or in this room, Trupti, Joanna, we would love it. So thank you. Yes, Joanna.
As the vice president of Denver INC, I wasn't told about translating it, and I would love to translate this into my first language, Spanish.
Thank you. Any other questions online, or we'll close this? It's almost.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we close the Q&A. Thank you for all of you who
Yeah.
listened to us, who brought up
Thank you.
things. Thank you to Lamone, who is our DEI chair, and onward, okay?
Gail,
Please vote, please vote.
Thanks, everybody. We'll send anything else out in the.
Thanks, Emma.
You want these cards? Thanks.
Yes, we do. Leave them with
Yeah,
Greg.
thank-
Bring them back. If you would.
It's close.
All right. Thank you, officer.
So.
No committee or announcements, or are we done?
We don't have
We're done.
time.